Now, EFF Leader Julius Malema says they do not agree with the Expropriation Bill in its current form, but will not allow the Freedom Front Plus to dictate to the nation. The Freedom Front Plus has called on parties that voted against the Expropriation Bill to unite in challenging the constitutionality of the new law in the Constitutional Court. EFF Plus leader Pieter Groenewald says his party maintains that the Expropriation Bill signed into law by President Ramaphosa on Thursday is unconstitutional. Malema says the EFF is not going to be dictated to by beneficiaries of apartheid.
We don't support the Expropriation Act because it's cosmetics. It's not a real act of doing anything. People just want to be seen doing something because it doesn't resolve the return of the land into the rightful owners. It talks about expropriation with compensation to justify willing buyer, willing seller. Willing buyer, willing seller means that even if government has got money, as long as the boer is not willing to sell, we're stopped. We can't do anything. So we don't support expropriation bill in its form, but we'll go to court to defend it against the right-wingers. Because as much as we're not happy with it, we're not happy with Freedom Front Plus and their friends. So any attack that comes from Freedom Front Plus is going to make us be on the same side of Ramaphosa when we go to court. We have already briefed our lawyers that once they put a court case, send their lawyers a letter now that tell them EFF is an interested party. Because in South Africa, you can't talk about land and you leave out the EFF. It will not be a good reflection of South African politics. So we are ready for Freedom Front Plus. But they are bluffing. They like things. I mean, the leader of Freedom Front Plus, since he was made a Minister of Correctional Service, a man has gone AWOL. He's only coming back now to tell us that he's going to court and all manner of things. So there is no any Freedom Front Plus. It is an entity to represent racist agendas. And those people are relatives of the people who killed Chris Hani. They were in contact with the people who killed Chris Hani. So they will never want anything that is to benefit of black people. So we don't agree with the Expropriation Bill the way it is now, but we won't allow the Freedom Front Plus to violate it, especially the Minister of Public Works, who says he won't implement a government law. Just by that statement alone, he has violated his oath of office because he said he will implement all the laws of South Africa. So there is no law of DA, there's a law of South Africa. Whether you like it or not, you are a minister, you must implement it or resign. They won't resign because they love positions. All of them. They like positions. Even when positions, they don't know what to do with those positions. They always threaten to walk away. They said they were going to walk away on Bella Bill. It went through. This Expropriation Bill, it has gone through. NHI will go through because we're not going to be dictated to by beneficiaries of apartheid.
To reflect more on the Expropriation Act, we're joined now by Jama-ah President Ganief Hendricks. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. We've just listened to EFF Leader Julius Malema saying that the EFF doesn't agree with the Expropriation Bill in its current form. What is your reaction?
Our position is that the Expropriation Land Act is a step in the right direction because Jama-ah is very involved and concerned about the eviction of farm dwellers. In one municipality alone in Drakensberg, that's Paarl, there are 20,000 farm workers that's in danger of being evicted from the land that they have been occupying, or their families have been occupying for over 100 years. There are 500 cases in the magistrates' court where farmers are trying to evict farm dwellers legally, and there are about 366 cases where farmers are trying to do it illegally. So the eviction of farm workers is a great concern to Jama-ah, and the Constitution Section 25 is not enough. Now that we have the Expropriation Land Bill signed into law, Jama-ah feels confident that we will be able to move forward and prevent the eviction of farm dwellers. In fact, I have a letter from President Ramaphosa in December to advise him on what legal prescripts we must make in order to prevent farm evictions. And he's asked the Minister of Land and Rural Development and the Minister of Kochte to assist me as Deputy Minister of the Department of Social Development to deal with this particular matter. And they have agreed, number one, to provide us with all the legal assistance that we need and funded. And number two, the Minister of Kochte has said that he will send an instruction that municipalities mustn't aid farmers in any way to evict farm dwellers. We are very concerned that the Land Tenure Act is being used by farmers to legally evict farm dwellers. That act was passed in 1996, and it has many flaws which the farmers are using to evict farm dwellers. Jama-ah has identified the clauses that needs to be changed, and I'm preparing a cabinet memo in order to amend the Land Tenure Act. We're not taking the route of the DA that's ignoring the statement of intent, where if you want to make any changes, you've got to come up with a cabinet memo, address the issues in a cabinet cluster consisting of the ministers that are directly involved, and then it goes to the cabinet for final approval.
Concerns have also, if you'll allow me, concerns have been raised around the legislation being expedited responsibly to safeguard private property rights and maintain investor confidence. What sort of approach should be used in that regard in trying to address that? We will expand in just a moment on the DA, but I think it's important for you to just answer to this.
Look, I would imagine that we have heard from the Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, that this is a step in the right direction, that more needs to be done. And I would imagine that the Land Appropriation Act in its present form was a bit of a soft approach to expropriation with no compensation, but there is provision for no compensation. I'll give you an example. In Paarl, there's a farm called Nantes, and there's a piece of land which workers are working on. We want that portion of land to be expropriated so that those workers are not evicted from the farm. And we've already got the agreement of Mr. Spies that he's seriously considering allowing that portion of his land to be given to the municipality so that farmers are not evicted. So it's not a pipe dream to use the present act and also the Constitution to get portions of land expropriated where farm dwellers are living. So that they're not evicted from these farms.
The part about, some critics arguing that the effectiveness of the legislation will have to hinge on genuine political will, or else it could just be a mere formality. I mean, we heard EFF Leader Julius Malema saying that the bill is merely cosmetic. It doesn't resolve the return of the land to the rightful owners. What's your view?
The political will is very important, and that's why we've written to the Minister of Kochte, asking him to assist in the expropriation of portions of land that farm workers are living on. And we're talking about 1 million farm workers. We cannot have a return to forced mass removals. So we are going to put a very strong case. And if the Minister of Public Works wants to argue against it, then we'll have to deal with it in the cabinet cluster, and the cabinet have to deal with it later on. So the political will is there. There are political parties, there's NGOs that are putting pressure on us to prevent farm workers from evicted, and President Ramaphosa is fully behind the initiative to prevent farm workers from being evicted, and Jama-ah will show how we can use the Land Expropriation Act together with the Constitution while we are trying to amend the Land Tenure Act, which has many flaws and which farmers are using to get legal evictions. In the past, people lost their homes and their land through bulldozers. Now they are losing it through the courts.
Yeah.
So there's a problem with the courts just allowing evictions left, right, and center. That cannot be in a democratic South Africa.
What do you make, I mean, you were touching on it earlier, the DA's position when it comes to being a partner in the GNU, but their position with this bill?
That's a joke of the year. I'll tell you why it's a joke of the year. The DA signed a statement of intent, like Jama-ah signed a statement of intent. And that statement of intent is quite clear that if there are any differences like we have now, the way to go is to prepare a cabinet memo. And then that cabinet memo will be discussed by a cabinet cluster of the relevant ministries. In this case, I suppose it will be Kochta, Land Affairs, Public Works, and maybe some others. And then they will have to reach consensus. There may be a minority report, and that goes to cabinet who makes the final decision. Because we respect Parliament, we respect the public participation that took place over 2 years. The DA had a chance as a member of the Portfolio Committee where they discussed it clause by clause. Every clause of the Act was discussed. They then had an opportunity to object to those two clauses and give an alternative. They did not do so now. So they can't use the government of national unity to undermine Parliament, to undermine the Constitution. That is anti-revolutionary, not the DA. The DA is a revolutionary party.
Very well. Thank you so much, Mr. Hendricks. Let me let you go. Thank you for weighing in. Before you're mistaken for crying, I can see there's a sensitivity with your eyes, but thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. Okay, there you have it. Join there for reaction by Jama-ah President Ganief Hendricks weighing in on the expropriation bill.